Welcome back to FlyEaglesFly News, where we dive deep into everything surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles, from heartbreaks to flashes of brilliance. This past matchup was one of those games that leaves fans questioning what could have been. The San Francisco 49ers came in with a strategy that was simple, precise, and brutally effective. They didn't try to overcomplicate anything they executed. Maintain pressure and let the Eagles' offense cool off at exactly the wrong time. It's the reality of facing a team with that kind of discipline. They can beat even the most explosive offenses if they stay consistent and capitalize on every opportunity. Watching it unfold was frustrating because you could see the potential, the talent. And yet everything seemed just out of reach on the field. Some individual performances stood out, but not always for the right reasons. A.J. Brown, for example, had a day that fans will remember, but unfortunately not in a positive light. His 3 drops, visible frustration, and sideline disagreements painted a picture of a player struggling to manage both performance and composure. Leadership, especially for someone wearing the captain's patch, is tested most when things go wrong, not when everything is smooth. Contrast that with Devontae Smith, who, despite some missed opportunities, faced the media and answered questions professionally, showing the kind of accountability that inspires teammates. Even the coaches, like Nate Sirianni, endure tough moments without shying away from scrutiny. The lesson is clear: owning the highs and lows alike is what separates leaders from others. And AJ's absence from accountability after the game was a glaring misstep. Coaching decisions compounded the problems on the field. The sideline dispute visibly affected A.J. Brown's involvement in the game. Plays shifted, targets diminished, and suddenly one of the team's biggest offensive threats was sidelined, at least mentally, and the rhythm of the offense suffered. This wasn't about making excuses, it was about understanding the domino effect of that single moment. By the time A.J. was back fully engaged, the game had already moved past him. Timing, confidence, and connection with the quarterback had been disrupted, and the offensive flow that fans had hoped for simply wasn't there. Decisions like this are critical at the highest level, and when mishandled, they can turn promising drives into missed opportunities. Defensively, there were glimpses of what could have been a dominant unit, but execution faltered in crucial moments. Reed Blankenship, despite undeniable talent, was overwhelmed in key plays. The trick play that led to a wide-open touchdown perfectly highlighted this. 3 defenders in pursuit, yet Christian McCaffrey broke free entirely alone because Reed was out of position. Moments like this are where defensive leadership is tested, where anticipation and decision-making make the difference between success and giving up a critical score. While other defenders, like Quan Mitchell, managed to make impactful plays later in the game, those moments couldn't make up for the gaps that allowed the 49ers to stay in control. The offensive line struggled under pressure, compounding the challenges for skilled players. Injuries were part of the story, yes, but penalties, missed assignments, and blown protections created a foundation unstable to support the offense. Quarterbacks and receivers can only do so much when the line fails to hold up, and the play calling reflected these struggles. Early drives showed promise, but soon the team fell into familiar patterns: predictable runs, cold stretches, and 3-and-outs that killed momentum against a team built for the playoffs. These mistakes are magnified. What worked in early games or less challenging matchups simply wasn't enough when every misstep could be exploited by a disciplined opponent. Still, there were individual moments that suggested what the offense could achieve if everything clicked. Dallas Goedert quietly emerged as a reliable weapon. His ability to make contested catches, his consistency, and his reliability at critical moments often outshone even the top names on the roster. The coaching staff, however, rarely adjusted the game plan to leverage his strengths. Talent alone isn't enough if the strategy doesn't maximize it. This misalignment of planning and player execution is a recurring theme, and in a game of this magnitude, it's painfully costly. Special teams, too, had their own challenges. Jake Elliott's ongoing struggles added pressure to an already high-stakes environment. When your kicker misses crucial points or shows inconsistency, it's not just a momentary setback, it ripples across the team, shaking confidence and momentum. Every position matters in a playoff setting, and every lapse becomes magnified. Reliability in these roles is essential, yet the Eagles struggled to find that stability when it mattered most. At the heart of many of these issues is coaching. Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni face questions that would test any leadership duo. Repeated patterns emerged week after week: strong starts that faded, predictable play calling, missed adjustments, and player confidence that dipped when it was needed most, relying too heavily on familiarity and internal hires can be comforting, but at the championship level, innovation, adaptability, and experience are essential. The Eagles' talent was undeniable, yet the guidance and strategy often failed to convert potential into results. Opportunities to pivot, adjust schemes, or capitalize on emerging strengths were too often ignored or mishandled. Even with all these challenges, there were moments that reminded fans why this team has such high expectations. Defensive standouts fought hard, young players flashed potential, and veterans showed grit when the moment demanded it. Yet, flashes are not enough to win consistently. Execution, preparation, and cohesive strategy across the roster are the pillars of championship football, and those pillars didn't hold when it mattered most. The Eagles had the components to compete at the highest level, but alignment and timing fell short, leaving supporters with a season full of tantalizing glimpses, but not the ultimate reward. Moving forward, the emphasis must be on accountability and cohesion. One player, one coach, or one bad game doesn't define the season. It's the culmination of repeated missteps and missed opportunities. The offense, no matter how talented, cannot function in isolation. It requires trust, rhythm, and play calling that maximizes each player's strengths. Coordinators and coaches need to align strategy with talent to ensure consistency. Without this, even the most explosive roster can falter. When pressure mounts, the lessons from this season are as much about leadership, preparation, and adaptability as they are about raw ability. Defense showed what's possible when execution clicks. Players like Zach Bond, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter delivered flashes of brilliance and resilience, even with injuries exposing gaps. The core defensive unit remains one of the strongest in the league. Reed Blankenship's missteps highlight areas for improvement, but paired with proper support, his potential is clear. The balance between offense and defense is critical. Championships require both units performing in sync. While defense can win games, the offense must rise to the occasion to complement it. Aligning these pieces correctly is essential for the Eagles to truly contend for a title. Leadership is the cornerstone that can make or break a season, and the Eagles' struggles highlighted just how critical it is to have steady hands at the helm. A.J. Brown's role as a captain came under scrutiny, not because of talent, but because leadership extends beyond performance. It's about showing resilience when the team faces adversity, holding yourself accountable, and setting an example for the locker room. Moments of pressure reveal character, and inconsistency in those moments creates ripple effects across the roster. When young players see hesitation or frustration from a leader, it shapes how they respond. The Eagles have talented leaders sprinkled throughout the roster, but the challenge lies in cultivating a culture where accountability and composure are expected, not optional. Personnel decisions and coaching hires play an equally significant role in shaping outcomes on the field. Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni relied heavily on internal familiarity, promoting continuity over innovation, while loyalty and shared history can help build cohesion. At the highest level, football requires adaptability, creativity, and experience in high-pressure situations. The 49ers game was a clear illustration of how deficiencies and in-game adjustments can compound errors. Offensive coordinators must not only understand their schemes, but also recognize the mental state of their players. Knowing when to push, when to adjust, and when to trust instincts can be the difference between maintaining momentum and falling behind. A fresh perspective, someone with proven experience in managing elite talent, could provide the spark needed to transform potential into consistent performance. Special teams also emphasize the fine margins that define championship-level football. Jake Elliott's struggles were more than isolated mistakes. They became a pressure amplifier for every unit on the field. When a kicker falters, it's not just the points that are missed, it impacts decision-making, confidence, and momentum across the roster. Every position, every assignment, every execution matters. Roster depth, competition, and accountability are critical, especially in tight playoff scenarios. The Eagles need a system where every player understands that performance expectations are absolute, not relative to past achievements. Without that discipline, small lapses turn into game-altering mistakes, as we saw against the 49ers. Looking at the skill positions on offense, it's evident that raw talent alone is insufficient. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown possess elite athletic ability, but translating that into sustained success requires rhythm, chemistry, and strategic utilization. Drops, miscommunications, and inconsistent play calling disrupted the flow of drives, preventing the team from capitalizing on momentum. Dallas Goedert's emergence offered a blueprint for maximizing talent, demonstrating that a dependable, consistent weapon can anchor an offense. Yet, the failure to integrate his strengths into the core game plan underscored a larger issue. Strategy must complement ability, without alignment between play design and player strengths. Even the most explosive athletes cannot carry a team through the pressures of postseason football. Adaptability emerged as another critical theme this season. Early successes often gave way to predictable sequences and cold stretches. With the team unable to respond effectively to defensive adjustments, playoff-level teams exploit these patterns ruthlessly. And the Eagles repeatedly found themselves in situations where responses were delayed or miscalculated. Championship football demands not only preparation, but also the ability to pivot mid-game, anticipate counters, and maintain unpredictability. Flexibility in strategy is as vital as execution, and the inability to adjust swiftly can turn promising matchups into losses. This season highlighted that gap, emphasizing the need for coordinators and coaches to combine foresight with tactical agility. Injuries, while impactful, were not the primary driver of inconsistency. They complicated situations, but did not solely account for breakdowns. Penalties, missed assignments, and mental lapses equally undermine the team's potential. Discipline reflects preparation, focus, and leadership, and when those elements falter, mistakes compound. The Eagles experienced flashes of brilliance, moments when offensive and defensive units clicked, but inconsistency overshadowed potential for a team built to compete at the championship level. That gap between capability and execution is unacceptable and serves as a critical lesson for both players and coaches moving forward. Looking forward, the Eagles face an opportunity for recalibration rather than despair. Core pieces are intact, defensive stars, dynamic skill players, and emerging leaders provide a foundation for sustained success. Refining strategy, clarifying leadership roles, and ensuring cohesion between talent and execution are essential next steps. These adjustments could transform the team from playoff participants into legitimate Super Bowl contenders. The lessons of this season are instructive. Accountability, preparation, and strategic insight are as vital as raw talent, and every element of the organization must perform at the highest level to realize potential. The season's narrative also underscored the thin margins in professional football. A single misread, a dropped pass, or a poorly managed moment can swing outcomes. The Eagles have proven they can compete and that the foundation exists, but translating that foundation into consistent results requires attention to detail, strategic refinement, and strengthened leadership. Adjustments in coaching, play calling, and in-game decision-making will define whether the team breaks through or remains in a cycle of near misses. Talent alone is insufficient. Execution, insight, and adaptability determine championship outcomes. FlyEaglesFly News family, smash subscribe and hit like. Your support keeps the freshest Philadelphia Eagles updates flying in. Drop your take in the comments and let's talk birds. Whispers began circulating around the practice facilities in Philadelphia after a closed training session reportedly delivered a surprise few were expecting. Observers close to the Eagles suggest that the atmosphere shifted dramatically when a group of new faces took the field and immediately altered the tone of the workout. While nothing has been officially confirmed by the organization, the buzz inside the locker room hints at moves that could reshape internal hierarchies and intensify competition across multiple units. According to sources familiar with the session, the newcomers did not arrive quietly. Their presence was felt from the opening drills, with speed, physicality, and confidence that allegedly caught several established players off guard. Some veterans were said to exchange looks of disbelief as these fresh reinforcements executed plays with a level of polish that suggested they may be pushing for significant roles sooner rather than later. The coaching staff, usually measured in public reactions, is rumored to have shown visible approval during key moments of the workout. Speculation has grown that these additions were not merely depth signings, but calculated bets aimed at sending a message to the roster. Competition has long been a defining principle in Philadelphia, and insiders believe this latest development reinforces that philosophy. Positions once considered stable may now be far more open than previously assumed, creating an undercurrent of urgency throughout the squad. There is also talk that the sudden impact of the new arrivals has energized the entire group. Practices, describe as intense but controlled, maybe taking on a sharper edge as players respond to the implicit challenge. Some within the organization quietly suggest that this internal pressure could elevate overall performance as preparations continue. For now, everything remains in the realm of rumor. The Eagles have kept their silence, allowing speculation to grow organically, yet one thing seems clear: something unexpected is brewing in Philadelphia. And the shockwaves from this training session could be felt well beyond the practice field. If these impressions prove accurate, that's a wrap from FlyEaglesFly News. If you want the fastest Eagles updates, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the bell. Sound off in the comments. Let's talk birds.